Okay, hey everyone. So I'm John, and today I'm going to be reading over this book called The Four Loves by C.S. Lewis. So, just to start off, if you don't know who C.S. Lewis is, to give you kind of a brief overview, you probably know who he is, but if you don't, he wrote the Chronicles of Narnia books. Those got turned into movies that were like, alright. So you probably know him from that. What you might not know him for is that he's one of the better known, better renowned Christian apologists of all time. And I don't mean apologist in the sense of that he apologizes for Christianity and calls it like bad or apologizes for what it's done, but in the sense of the older sense of the word, where it means that he kind of explains some of the logical problems that the common person may have with Christianity. He kind of walks them through his thought process, and he tries to use reason to kind of lead people to the conclusion that God is real, God loves you, God is all-powerful. He's been described as kind of the perfect person to help somebody who wants to believe in God, but finds their intellect getting in their way. So he's a really smart dude. He taught at Oxford. He is just widely renowned. He was friends with Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings. So he's just one of among the Christian community, just one of the best writers and thinkers, just of the modern time. So he wrote this book called The Four Loves. So obvious question is, what is this book even about? Well, the book is about kind of all the loves that humanity experiences in our time and all of the types of love that exist in the world. So, the four types of love are eros, charity, affection, and friendship. So, these are kind of the four broadest categories of loves that people experience in their daily lives. But before he gets into talking about that, he starts by breaking down kind of the starting point of all love, right? So the four categories I just gave you, eros, charity, eros is like lust, eros, charity, friendship, and affection, these are the more narrow categories of love that he has, but when he starts, he just splits it, boom, right into two. He makes it pretty much as simple as he can, which is tough to deal with the subject, such as love. It's easy to get lost in the clouds and everything, and although his writing style is kind of, at sometimes a bit confusing because it's older and it's, kind of university-style writing, it's very clear. So he breaks the love down into two distinct parts, right? The first part is gift love, right? And the second part is need love. So, he says all loves have their starting roots in these two. So it's either a gift love or a need love. And, the names are pretty self-explanatory, right? A gift love is, the greatest example that I'm going to kind of use recurringly for an example is that gift love would be what a father provides to a child, what a mother provides to a child, right? And just out of love for something, you go out, you go to work, you provide for it, you protect it, you would give your life for the child. The mother goes through the pain of pregnancy and labor, and then, breastfeeds the child and puts a strain on her body for this child out of love. It is a giving love. It is also, and this will come up later, the love that God has for us, right? So God didn't gain really anything by making humanity. He was perfect, he was happy, he loved himself perfectly. He created humanity for us, to let us kind of share in his greatness. So he did it completely altruistically, right? It was a perfect act of give love, a perfect example of give love, where he made us for us, not for himself. And the opposite end of that is need love. And what we want to do is be extremely careful with need love, to avoid tearing it down or debasing it, because it's very important to remember that need love is not a bad thing, right? At its lowest point, it can be bad, or it can be kind of deplorable. But think of a child who needs its parents, who calls out, for comfort, for food, who can't take care of itself, who has to be provided for by its parents. In this case, need love is not a bad thing. With the way that man was created, we are inherently always in need of something. We need food, we need water, we need shelter, we need each other. We need God, right? There's nothing we can really offer to God. We can spread His word, we can bring others to Him, but at the end of the day, we just need God, and there's not much we can give Him. And we need to avoid the temptation to kind of push need love down to a lower statue or to devalue it just because of the fact that there's kind of a negative connotation associated with needing somebody, especially in America. People like to think that you shouldn't need anybody, that you should be self-sufficient. But no man is an island. God said it is not good for man to be alone. He made Adam his Eve. He wants man and woman to be together, to complete each other. He wants the church as a community of people. It's hard to be a Christian in isolation. Just really, you're born into need. It's a simple fact of life, and trying to avoid it, as C.S. Lewis says, is very egotistical, to assume that you don't need anybody, when in reality, we're all born into a state of need. So, a second thing to remember about need love is that you can't really have, and a recurring theme throughout his book is that the lowest has to exist before the highest can, right? You build from the lowest to the highest. If a building is only as strong as its foundation. So need love is, for humans, the foundation of many of our relationships, and all the maybe greater, better loves that are more exalted are built upon this foundation of need, of the fact that we need each other, we need community, we need affection, we need love, we need all of these things. And so all of the loves that we talked about earlier, eros, charity, friendship, affection, they are built upon this foundation of need, love, of the fact that we need something from somebody. So we need to see it kind of as a foundation for all relationships. You know what I mean? There is an interesting example of this. It was like a TikTok trend a little bit ago where it's like a red flag if you ask your boyfriend to describe his mom or what he likes about his mom, and the things that he describes are the things that she does for him. She cooks for me, she cleans for me, she takes care of me. And so apparently if your boyfriend or whoever you were interested in said that about his mom, it means that he sees kind of women for what they can do for him. And I would kind of tilt that in a different light and just say that, especially parental relationships are built upon just an absolute foundation of need. You were born a child. Without your mother, without your father, you would have died. Or you wouldn't have been born at all. There was an absolute necessity that you had from them at that point. And, to kind of push down that love, even if it is need love, is kind of egotistical, because that's the starting point of all love, and it's important to kind of remember that. So, another thing that C.S. Lewis says, he continues on in the book talking about kind of dissecting the types of love, and he makes an important point about a distinction between being like God and being near God, right? These are two different things. We are like God because God made us in His likeness. He said, He gave us reason, which is kind of the main feature of humanity that distinguishes us from, the beasts of the field. We have reason. We can think. We can, make choices. We can sacrifice the present for the future. and this makes us like God. Not the same as God, but like Him. But that does not mean we are near God. It does not mean we are approaching God. It does not mean we are coming closer to God in an approach of our final unification with Him. So the beautiful metaphor that C.S. Lewis uses in his book is, imagine you were traveling upon a mountain and you're going to a village, and at one point you come up to a peak on the mountain. You're at the highest, and from this peak you can look down and you can see the village. But this is all rocky crag right here, so there's no way to get to the village. And in this way, you might only be a couple miles from the village. You are like the village, but you are not at the village. And in order to actually begin to approach the village, you might have to take a detour around a couple of other villages. And even though statically, just measuring by distance, you might actually be going further from the village, in terms of progress, you are actually drawing nearer to it. And that is an important distinction to remember, because what he describes is that giving gift love is the most like God love that we can have. And for this reason, we have the tendency to put gift love up on a pedestal and say that, hold it up on a pedestal, and we don't just have gift love, we make gift love our God. And a great quote from this book is that love begins to be a demon the moment it begins to be a god. Right? So think of two examples here. Erotic love. If, in the hierarchy of where your allegiance is, right, you owe kind of an unconditional allegiance, right, to God. And then beneath that, it would be, your wife, your parents, maybe your children above your wife. In some order, your friends, your community, your family, yourself. In some order, but all of this is below God. And if you take the love of any one of these things, yourself or your partner, and you put that above God, you make that your God in essence, then his point is that not only is that a warp of reality, but it also destroys the love itself, right? The moment you make it a God, it becomes a demon. And in reality, that love cannot exist in the pure form that it was meant to. It begins to become a complicated form of hatred, where you're kind of worshiping this thing rather than loving it as you should, rather than worshiping God as you should. So, you can see this with your country. When people's patriotism fires them up so much that they kind of do anything for their country, and it ends up just being kind of wrong, evil. It leads them to kill people that they shouldn't kill, leads them to say things they shouldn't say, do things they shouldn't do, and the warp of their allegiances and giving unconditional allegiance to their country when they shouldn't be giving unconditional allegiance to their country. They should only give that to God. And And if you do give that to God, you will be rewarded. You can see that in the story of Isaac and Abraham. Abraham takes Isaac up to the mountain, and he's willing to sacrifice his only begotten son to God. He trusts that God will either, stop him, or that if he does kill Isaac, God will bring him back. He just trusts in that. He gives his allegiance to God over everything, and that's incredibly difficult to do, and he is rewarded for it. So need love, and it's important to note the negative aspects of need love, right? That it becomes like an addiction, it becomes deplorable, where you're just taking and taking and taking and never giving. But it's important to notice the negative aspects of gift love too, where you would give so much to something that doesn't deserve it. You are giving unconditional allegiance to something of this earth that does not deserve that kind of allegiance. Right? That's the negative part of gift love. The negative part of need love is that it can become kind of like an addiction. You know what I mean? You're scratching an itch, but you don't have the same tendency to exalt need love to a God. Because if you have an itch and you scratch it, you don't exactly think of that itch as your God, right? So I'm going to leave it here for today, but that's kind of the intro that he starts off. Main points are just there's two big types of love, right? Gift love and need love. And I think just it's very helpful in your own life and has been, or at least it's been helpful for me personally to kind of try to find a balance between these two in my relationships. It's like, is this relationship more need love for me or more gift love? Am I giving more than I should be giving? Do I have some kind of unconditional allegiance here that I shouldn't have? You know, is this person just really not deserving of all that I'm giving to them? And that's been helpful for me in my own life. So maybe it will be for you too. But, you know, thank you for watching, and I look forward to kind of continuing through this book more and more as the days go on.